I'm Isla, and my life was a perfectly woven tapestry of routine and trust, each day blending into the next with comforting predictability. Married to Jonathan for 22 years, I thought I knew every corner of his heart, every hidden smile. But then he invited me to a mysterious private club, his eyes glinting with a secret I couldn't decipher, promising a night that would shatter everything I believed about us. As we stepped into a world of shadowed opulence, my heart raced with a mix of curiosity and dread. What was waiting behind those velvet curtains, and why did his touch feel both familiar and dangerously new? Stick around, because what I discovered that night will leave you speechless. Picture this. I'm standing at the edge of a memory, the kind that feels like a whisper against your skin, teasing you with secrets yet to unfold. I'm Isla, 47 years young, and I've carved out a life that's as steady as the rhythm of a heartbeat. My days unfold in a suburban haven just beyond the city's restless pulse, where the hum of traffic is a distant murmur. As a freelance graphic designer, I've built a world within the walls of my home office, crafting visuals that speak louder than words, all while savoring the quiet that wraps around me like a familiar blanket. Stability. That's my cornerstone. I've never been one for wild escapades or reckless dreams. Instead, I find my joy in the small, grounding moments that stitch my life together. And then there's Jonathan, my husband of 22 years. At 50, he's a financial consultant, a man who carries a quiet intensity, often lost in the labyrinth of his own thoughts. To the outside world, he might seem reserved, even distant, but I see the warmth that simmers beneath. It's in the way he'll leave a steaming cup of coffee on my desk without a word, just when I need it most. Or the gentle press of his hand on my shoulder when he senses the weight of a deadline pressing down on me. There's an enigma to him, a hidden depth I've never quite reached, even after all these years. But that mystery has only deepened my trust in him. I've always believed that whatever lies beneath his guarded exterior, it's something worth waiting for, something meant just for me. Our life together has been a steady current, flowing through the years with a comforting predictability. We've built routines that feel like home, Sunday brunches at the corner cafe, evening walks through the neighborhood, the soft murmur of conversation over dinner. But lately, I've noticed a change in Jonathan, subtle as a shadow shifting in the light. There's a spark in his eyes, a secretive excitement that flickers when he thinks I'm not looking. It's as if he's holding a piece of a puzzle I didn't even know we were solving. 2 weeks ago, that spark turned into something tangible. He came to me with an invitation, his voice low and charged with a quiet thrill. "Isla," he said, "there's a special party at a private club downtown. I want you to come with me. I've got a surprise for you, something that's going to change everything." My curiosity flared instantly, mingling with a tiny thread of nervousness that tugged at my chest. Change everything? What could he mean by that? I searched his face for clues, but all I found was that enigmatic smile, the one that's always promised more than it reveals. I agreed, of course. How could I not? Jonathan's surprises have always been my undoing, from unexpected weekend getaways to little tokens of thoughtfulness that catch me off guard in the best way. But this time, there was an edge too. As we stepped out of the cab and onto the quiet street, the city's usual clamor seemed to fade into a hush, as if it knew something I didn't. The private club loomed ahead, a nondescript brick building that could have been mistaken for an old warehouse if not for the faint thrum of life pulsing from within. I smoothed the fabric of my lavender dress, the soft material clinging to me in a way that made me feel both elegant and a little exposed among the sleek crowd I imagined waiting inside. Jonathan's hand rested lightly on the small of my back, a steadying warmth as we approached the heavy, unmarked door. He gave a subtle nod to the man standing guard who stepped aside without a word, and just like that, we were in. The interior hit me like a wave of opulence wrapped in shadow. A maze of dimly lit rooms unfolded before us, each one draped in rich velvet curtains the color of midnight. The polished wooden floors gleamed under the soft amber glow of chandeliers, reflecting flickers of light that danced like secrets in the air. A faint scent lingered, expensive cologne mixed with the delicate sweetness of jasmine, wrapping the space in an intoxicating haze. The atmosphere buzzed with a lively yet intimate energy. Soft jazz hummed in the background, weaving through the low murmur of conversation and the occasional clink of glasses as guests savored their cocktails. Laughter spilled out in bursts, sharp and bright, but it felt like it belonged to a world I was only visiting. I glanced at Jonathan, taking in the way he fit so effortlessly into this scene. His crisp white shirt, collar unbuttoned just enough to hint at a casual confidence, paired with dark trousers that hugged his frame in all the right ways. His hair, slightly tousled, gave him a roguish charm, and I couldn't help but feel a flutter in my chest at how striking he looked under these lights. But me? I felt like an outsider in my own skin. The lavender dress suddenly too bright, too bold for a place like this. His hand pressed a little firmer against my back, sensing my hesitation, and I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. We moved through the crowd, his arm guiding me as we mingled. I clutched a tart gin and tonic, the sharp bite of it grounding me as Jonathan introduced me to a handful of acquaintances. Their names slipped through my mind like water, unfamiliar, fleeting. They seemed to know him well, though, their smiles polite but tinged with something guarded, something I couldn't quite decipher. I caught the quick, subtle glances they exchanged when they thought I wasn't looking, and it made the back of my neck prickle. Who were these people to him? Why did their eyes seem to hold unspoken questions? But then Jonathan pulled me onto the dance floor, and all those nagging thoughts melted away. His hand was warm against mine, his other arm sliding around my waist as we swayed to the slow, sultry rhythm of the jazz. The A's we swayed to the last notes of that sultry jazz tune on the dance floor, Jonathan's grip on my hand tightened just a fraction, a silent signal that something was shifting. He leaned in close, his breath warm against my ear, and murmured, "Come with me, Isla. There's something I need to show you." His voice carried a weight I couldn't ignore, a mix of promise and something deeper, something that made my pulse quicken with both anticipation and a creeping unease. I nodded, letting him lead me away from the crowd, away from the amber glow and the hum of conversation that had started to feel like a cocoon. We moved through the club, leaving the lively main rooms behind, and entered a series of winding corridors that seemed to stretch on forever. The music faded into a distant hum, like a heartbeat muffled by walls, growing fainter with every step. The lighting dimmed as we walked, the warm chandeliers replaced by sparse sconces that cast long, flickering shadows on the dark paneled walls. We passed closed doors on either side, their surfaces smooth and uninviting, and empty hallways that branched off into unseen depths. The air grew cooler here, carrying a faint, musky scent that clung to the back of my throat, unfamiliar and unsettling. My heels clicked softly against the hardwood floor, the sound echoing in the stillness, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were venturing into a part of the club not meant for just anyone. Jonathan's hand held mine firmly, his touch steady but gentle, grounding me even as my mind raced. I glanced at him, searching his face for some hint of what was coming, but his expression was unreadable, his jaw set and his eyes fixed ahead. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice sounding smaller than I intended in the quiet of the corridor. He turned to me then, offering a reassuring smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You'll see soon enough," he said softly, and though his tone was calm, his silence after that unnerved me more than I cared to admit. Finally, we stopped at the end of a narrow passage, in front of a heavy wooden door that looked older than the rest of the club, its surface worn and etched with faint scratches. Jonathan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, tarnished key, the metal glinting briefly in the dim light. He slid it into the lock, and the click of the mechanism echoed around us, sharp and final, making my stomach twist. He pushed the door open slowly, the hinges creaking as if protesting the intrusion, and gestured for me to step inside. The room beyond was small, almost suffocatingly so, the walls pressing in close. A soft, golden light spilled from a single overhead fixture, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe across the space. In the center of the room was a wide, low mattress draped in dark silk sheets, the fabric shimmering faintly, inviting yet ominous. The walls caught my attention next. They were studded with several round openings, like vents, each about a foot across, leading to unseen spaces beyond. I couldn't tell what lay on the other side, but the sight of them sent a shiver down my spine. The air in here was thick, heavy with an unspoken tension that made my skin prickle, and that musky scent was stronger now, mingling with something sweeter, almost cloying. I turned to Jonathan, my voice trembling despite my efforts to keep it steady. "What is this place?" I asked, my eyes darting back to those strange holes in the walls. He stepped closer, his presence both comforting and overwhelming, and placed a hand on my shoulder. "It's safe," he said, his voice low and intense. "Just lie down. Feel it. Trust me." His eyes locked onto mine, burning with a mix of anticipation and something darker, something I couldn't name but felt in the pit of my stomach. I wanted to protest, to demand answers, but there was a pull in his gaze, a silent plea that tugged at the trust I'd always placed in him. Hesitant, I moved toward the mattress, my legs feeling heavier with each step. I lowered myself onto it, the silk, as I settled onto the dark silk sheets, the cool fabric whispered against my skin, a stark contrast to the heat building inside me. My lavender dress, soft and delicate, felt like the thinnest of shields, bunched up slightly at my hips as I lay there, exposed in a way I hadn't anticipated. The air in this small, shadowed room pressed against me, thick with that musky, sweet scent that seemed to seep into every breath I took. My heart thudded in my chest, a wild rhythm I couldn't control, as I felt the first unfamiliar touch. A warm hand gliding over my arm, light as a feather but heavy with intent. It sent a jolt through me, a spark that danced along my nerves, and I couldn't tell if it was fear or something else entirely. There were hushed murmurs around me, voices so low I couldn't catch the words, just the cadence of them, like a secret language meant to soothe or entice. My breath hitched as another touch came, this time along the curve of my shoulder, fingers tracing a path that felt both foreign and deliberate. Every sensation was magnified in this confined space, the warmth of those unseen hands, the faint rustle of movement beyond the walls, the way my own body seemed to betray me with every shiver. I squeezed my eyes shut for a moment, trying to anchor myself, but it only made the feelings more intense, as if I could map every touch in the darkness behind my lids. Jonathan's hand found mine, his grip firm and familiar, a lifeline in this sea of the unknown. He sat close, his presence a steady weight beside me, and his voice cut through the haze, low and reassuring. "Let go, Isla. Feel everything. This is for you, a gift I've wanted to share." His words wrapped around me, a tether pulling me back from the edge of panic. I clung to them, to the sound of his breathing, steady and calm, while my own came in shallow bursts. I wanted to scream, to push away these unseen hands and demand to know what this was, what he'd brought me into. But there was another part of me, buried deep beneath layers of caution and doubt, that stirred with a dangerous curiosity. What if I let myself feel this? What if I stopped fighting? I thought about our marriage, the 22 years of trust woven into every quiet moment we'd shared. Jonathan had always been a mystery in some ways, a man with depths I hadn't fully explored, but I'd never doubted his heart. Even in his secrecy, there was a promise of protection, of love. Was this the ultimate test of that bond? Lying here, vulnerable under touches I couldn't predict, I felt the weight of that question pressing down on me. My mind churned, torn between the instinct to flee and the pull to stay, to see where this path led. My body, though, seemed to have its own answer, muscles tensing and then slowly, almost reluctantly, beginning to ease. Focusing on Jonathan's voice, on the rhythm of his breath so close to me, I felt a shift inside. The fear that had coiled tight in my chest started to loosen, just a fraction, making space for something new, a tentative acceptance of what was happening. The touches changed too, becoming less startling, more intentional, almost as if they were honoring the space I occupied. A hand brushed along my collarbone, slow and careful, and I caught myself reacting in a way I hadn't expected. A shiver that wasn't just from nerves, a soft sigh slipping past my lips before I could stop it. It surprised me, that sound, like a confession I hadn't meant to make. My skin felt alive, hyper-aware of every contact, every whisper of movement, and I couldn't deny the undercurrent of something thrilling weaving through the uncertainty. I was at a crossroads, teetering on the edge of a decision that felt monumental. Do I stop this now? Demand we leave this strange, intimate space behind? Or do I let myself fall into it completely, surrendering to whatever Jonathan had planned? My mind raced, replaying every moment that led us here, the secretive glances, the hidden excitement in his eyes, the way he'd guided me through those dim hallways. And in that moment, I made my choice. I stopped fighting. I let go, surrendering to the tide of sensations that had been pulling at me since I first lay down on these dark silk sheets. It was like stepping off a cliff, not knowing where I'd land, but trusting the fall itself. My body softened, melting into the rhythm of it all, my mind finally quieting as I gave myself over to the experience. The hands, 7 distinct presences, each with its own story told through touch, became a symphony of contrasts. One was gentle, almost hesitant, fingertips brushing against my skin like a whispered question, while another was bold, insistent, guiding me with a confidence that left no room for doubt. A third lingered with a slow, deliberate warmth, tracing patterns that sent shivers racing down my spine. The others, each unique, wove into the moment, their touches blending into a dance of sensation that overwhelmed my senses, drowning out the last echoes of fear. I couldn't see them, couldn't know who they were, and that anonymity became its own kind of freedom. It stripped away the weight of judgment, of expectation, leaving only the raw, unfiltered pulse of feeling. Whispers floated around me, soft and indistinct, like a chorus of secrets meant just for my ears, urging me deeper into this uncharted space. My breath came in uneven waves, each gasp a surrender, each sigh a release of something I'd held onto for far too long. My skin felt electric, every nerve alight with a fire I hadn't known I could feel, as if I were being remade in the heat of it all. Jonathan's hand stayed in mine, his grip tightening with every sound I made, a silent tether that kept me grounded even as I soared. His voice was a constant murmur, a stream of pride and adoration that wrapped around me like a warm embrace. "You're so beautiful, Isla," he whispered, his words trembling with emotion. "This moment, it's ours. I've never seen you like this, so alive." His words pierced through the haze, anchoring me to him, to us, even as I drifted in this sea of sensation. I squeezed his hand back, needing him to know I felt it too. This connection, this shared leap into the unknown. His presence beside me made every touch, every whisper, feel like something we were discovering together, a secret language only we could understand. I knew in the back of my mind that I'd crossed a line. The traditional boundaries of our marriage, the vows we'd spoken all those years ago, seemed to blur in this darkness. But with Jonathan here, his voice a steady heartbeat beside me. It didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like liberation. Like I'd shed a skin I'd worn for too long, one made of rules and roles I'd never questioned until now. The guilt that had always lingered at the edges of my thoughts, the weight of who I was supposed to be, dissolved in the intensity of this moment. I was no longer just the steady, predictable Isla. I was something more, something wild, untamed, and free. The pleasure built slowly at first, a quiet hum beneath my skin, then surged like a wave cresting on the shore. It grew, unstoppable, until it crashed over me, leaving me breathless, trembling, my mind empty of everything but the sheer force of it. It was as if every pent-up emotion, every unspoken desire, poured out in that release, washing away years of restraint. I felt my body arch, my voice escape in a sound I barely recognized as my own, raw and unguarded. And as the wave receded, I was left floating in its aftermath, my chest heaving, my limbs heavy but light at the same time, as if I'd been unburdened of something I couldn't name. I've never felt so alive. Not in the quiet routines of our suburban life, not in the safe, familiar moments that had defined me for so long. Here, in this shadowed room, surrounded by unseen hands and whispers, I discovered a part of myself I didn't know existed. I wasn't just a wife, a designer, a woman bound by the expectations I'd built around myself. As I lay there on the dark silk sheets, the echoes of what just transpired still ripple through me, leaving a quiet that feels almost sacred in its weight. The room is still, heavy with the aftermath, as if the very walls hold their breath, absorbing the intensity of what unfolded here. My body hums with lingering aftershocks, a subtle tremor beneath my skin that reminds me I'm alive in a way I've never quite understood before. My lavender dress, now disheveled and crumpled around me, feels like an afterthought, irrelevant in the face of what I've just experienced. I'm still sprawled on the mattress, my chest rising and falling with breaths that are slowly, finally, finding their rhythm again. Jonathan's presence beside me is a quiet anchor. He shifts closer, his movements careful, almost reverent, as he helps me sit up. His touch is gentle, his fingers brushing a stray strand of hair from my face, tucking it behind my ear with a tenderness that catches me off guard after the storm we've just weathered. His eyes search mine, deep and probing, as if he's looking for something, maybe a flicker of regret, or perhaps a sign that I'm still with him, that I'm okay. I meet his gaze, and in that moment, I see the vulnerability beneath his usual guarded exterior, a rawness that mirrors my own. Inside, I'm a tangle of emotions, a swirling mix of awe and confusion, but also a strange, unexpected clarity that cuts through it all like a beacon. I sift through my feelings, turning them over in my mind, and I come to a realization that startles me. I don't regret this, not a single moment of it. That surprises me most of all, because I thought I'd be drowning in guilt or shame by now, weighed down by the expectations I've carried for so long. But instead I feel free. In that darkness, with those unseen presences and the intensity of every sensation, I was unburdened, stripped of the roles I've played for years. And I know, deep in my bones, that it's because Jonathan was there, guiding me through it, sharing in this unspoken journey. His presence made it safe to let go, to explore a part of myself I didn't even know was waiting to be found. After a moment, he stands, offering me his hand, and I take it, letting him pull me to my feet. My legs are unsteady at first, still trembling from the intensity, but his arm slips around my waist, steadying me as we prepare to leave this small, shadowed sanctuary behind. We step out of the room, the heavy wooden door creaking shut behind us with a finality that echoes in the narrow corridor. The air feels cooler out here, a sharp contrast to the thick warmth we're leaving behind. And as we walk back through the silent, winding hallways, the distant murmur of music from the party filters through the walls. It sounds so far away, like it belongs to another world entirely, a world I'm not sure I fit into anymore. My heels click softly against the hardwood floor, the sound a quiet reminder of the reality we're returning to. But my mind is still half in that room, replaying every moment, every feeling. Jonathan's hand remains at my waist, a constant grounding touch as we navigate the dim passages, the flickering sconces casting long shadows that dance alongside us. I steal a glance at him, taking in the set of his jaw, the way his eyes seem focused yet distant, as if he's processing this just as much as I am. There's a quiet between us, not uncomfortable, but charged, filled with everything we haven't yet said. When we finally emerge into the main hall, the lively energy of the party washes over us again, the clink of glasses, the hum of conversation, the soft jazz weaving through it all. No one seems to notice us at first, or if they do, their smiles are subtle, knowing, almost complicit, as if they can sense the shift in us without needing to ask. I feel their glances, brief and discreet, and I wonder what they see. Do they know where we've been? What we've shared? Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.